friends, this is Valessa from A LIFE REFURBISHED, and a week ago I found this mid-century modern dresser at the thrift store. Unfortunately, it was missing some of the original hardware, but I thought this is a great candidate to recreate the Dolores Dresser from Pottery Barn. As usual, I have tons of tips and tricks to share with you today, so if you don't want to miss on today's Pottery Barn lookalike, stick around. We have laminate tops. Full transparency here, when I first saw this boxy looking guy with dovetail joints, I didn't know that this was the look that I was gonna try to recreate. I'm not sure if somebody added those legs at some point. I'm only questioning the leg height because they seem a little bit on the short side to me. The shell is made out of solid wood and some of it is wrapped in this beautiful walnut veneer. As we commonly see, the edges of the drawers have missing veneer spots. And this piece is no exception. I know that there are plenty of you who are wondering why isn't she restoring this guy, but I think that as you watch things unfold, you're gonna understand why. I mean, is it possible that I could have found a couple of handles that match the originals online? Perhaps. However, I thought that this guy needed more than just paint. And if I'm completely honest, even after restoring it, I would still think that this guy looks a little plain. As I'm removing the hardware and coming face to face with the floral pattern peel and stick paper they used to line the drawers, I'm hoping that the battle of removing it is not too rough. And thankfully it wasn't. Today I'm using simple green to clean off any old dirt and polish residue on the outside and vacuuming the dust that has collected on the inside. One of the many things I've learned from refinishing furniture for years now is how valuable modern solid wood legs are. And if I happen to find them at the antique shops, I'll buy them just in case I need them for a future project. And as you can see, that served me well today because after testing a couple different sizes, I was able to find taller ones in my stash that match the same screw size as the originals. You can also find good quality wood modern legs on Amazon, but just be ready to pay a higher price. By looking at the dresser, I already know that the parts that have that darker brown obviously is a dark stain, and the goal was to make the dresser look cohesive, but I already know that it's gonna be a pressed wood, which is just a cheaper quality. Because of that and the fact that the top is for mica, very shiny glassy surface, I think this is a great candidate for paint. I want to add rattan to the front of the drawers or some kind of fabric because it's pretty plain looking. Once I had my RC mask on, I put on some 180 grit onto my sander and started scuffing up the sleek and shiny laminate. This is going to give my primer and paint a much better surface to grip onto. To sand the front of the dresser, I'm going to be removing the drawers at the same time. Since it's pretty easy to get them mixed up, I'm numbering them so that I know exactly where they go once I'm done. After clearing up all the dust with a damp cloth, I'm going to be adding knobs to the drawers and the previous hardware holes won't be needed. I'm filling them up with this Quickwood epoxy putty. After I knead it to a uniform color, I press it firmly onto all the screw holes and the areas where the veneer is missing. This product sets after 25 minutes and then I can sand it. Since I ran out the shellac base primer from bin that I normally use, I'm gonna be using this stained lacquer white primer that's water-based from General Finishes. One of the advantages of using a water-based product versus oil-based is cleanup. Water-based is definitely easier to clean up. You can spray, roll, or brush this primer. I'm gonna try to keep the process easy for myself and roll it on today. However, shellac-based or oil-based primers are more effective at getting rid of bleed-through or wood stains. Since this dresser has a laminate top and I didn't really sand it down to bare wood, aside from the areas where I covered those old screw holes, I'm not expecting that much bleed through, if any. And of course, after the first coat of primer, I found this. There are some wood tannings that are coming through, these brown spots, where I sanded down to the bare wood to make the wood filler where I filled those previous hardware holes smooth. And also right here again where I sanded and exposed bare wood. So I'm gonna do another coat, and who knows, I might need to apply an oil-based primer over this water one, but I'm gonna have to wait until tomorrow to do that to make sure this one's dry. I started my morning by measuring the front of the drawers to cut the wood slats to size to add the frames. Once I was done cutting all the straight angles, I went back to make sure that the frames fit. Then I'm marking what direction the 45-degree angles needed to go. I adjusted my miter saw to 45 degrees and made the angle cuts. Unfortunately, when I went back to check on the dresser, the wood tannings were still there after that second coat was applied of this water-based primer, which means that I need to spot prime with an oil-based primer. I got out my can of shellac-based beam primer and just spot prime it when I saw all those brown spots. Sometimes rolling the primer will leave a little bit of a texture. I got rid of it by scuff sanding it and then clean up the sanding dust and filled up my Flexio 3500 sprayer with 1 hour enamel in the color jet black. I ended up adding a splash of water after it was spraying very slow, and that took care of it. For full transparency, I have to confess that every time I've used 1 hour enamel, I've had issues with it showing my spray pattern as it dries. And this is not something you want. Even after adjusting the settings like speed or output amount, nothing worked. And in a few minutes, I'm gonna tell you how I resolved this problem. We're gonna be staining the frames pretty soon, and I'm gonna tell you that if I were to do it again, I would skip this first step, which was staining using this moonshine color, which is a white color stain. Because my goal in staining the frames is for them to match the fabric that I'm gonna be using. And applying a color wash of rattan ended up matching a lot better. And to match the rattan fabric even more, I ended up applying 1 coat of this old-fashioned water stain from Lilly Moon paint. You can see the contrast before and after the stain here. It adds a lot more depth. And I know this might seem obvious, but just make sure that you're double checking the measurements on each drawer. I like to make my cuts about 1/2 inch shorter than the actual size of the drawer. That way the rattan won't stick out once I add the frames on top. Since the rattan fabric is see-through, I want the drawers to match the same color, and that's why I apply 1 coat of Lilly Moon paint in the color rattan. 2 hours later, once the paint dried, I brush a good amount of matte patch to glue the rattan fabric. This way, it's less likely that the fabric will be moving around while I'm nailing the frames. Using a couple pieces of wood, I press the rattan against the matte patch glue until it dry. For the next step, you're gonna notice that I have small pieces of tape right on the areas where I'm gonna be adding nails. The reason being is because once I'm done nailing all the frames, I'm gonna be adding some wood filler to cover them up. By adding the tape, I keep the wood frames wood filler free. To disguise any evidence that I had added wood filler, I ended up doing one final coat of the old-fashioned gel stain from Lilly Moon paint. A couple nice things about these water-based gel stains is that they dry very quick because they're water-based. They also have a top coat already built in, so there is no need to top coat them. Since I'm only gonna be adding one single knob to all the drawers, I re-measured the center and then drill the hole. Every time that I've tried 1 hour enamel from Wise Owl, I keep facing the same problem over and over, and that is that I can see the spray pattern. I'm gonna try and see if by adding a little bit of black color paint to my top coat, if I can minimize that. After speaking with other refinishers, I'm realizing this is a common problem when using dark colors from the Wise Owl 1 hour enamel line. You see those lines that go this way, and you might see some going the other way too. That's what I'm getting with the 1 hour enamel, no matter what kind of thing I try with my sprayer. I'm just crossing my fingers that this will work and help minimize that streakiness. Let's see. After applying a juicy coat of this tinted top coat, I'm happy to report that the streakiness disappeared. Now it's time to focus on the details. These are from Hobby Lobby. They're $3.99, but they always have a 50% off sale every other week if you look at their ads online. So I always try to get them for a deal. So $3.99, half of that, or pretty close to half of that. And finally, I relined the drawers using the Spill and Stick wallpaper Opal House brand from Target. Friends, we have arrived to the finish line, but let's remember our inspiration piece that sells for almost $2,000. And this is how my $50 thrifted dresser looked when I found it. And this is how it looks today. Let me know what you guys think of my own rendition of this Dolores cane dresser from Pottery Barn. I probably spent about $100 worth in materials, a grand total of $150. I think that's a great price for a great looking dresser.